Hey, Luna. All right. This is the Kiko pen. This is kind of their upper yard slash a little bit of a dry lot, the way it's turned into. They, just like the boars, have two shelters. Again, we have another tin can or porta hut. It's 7 by 11. You can see our little fainter fills it in pretty good. Hey, Dixie. And these are my girls, at least the ones that are out here right now. Hi, Mama. So, you can see how big Andy's gotten. She's, I think, taller than Mom, or at least her height now. We just got to fill out in breadth. So, it's kind of our thing about our little kids. Technically, Andy's up for potentially being on the breeding schedule this fall. But just like with the boar babies, it's not just a component of skeleton, it's also a component of weight. We like to make sure they're fully grown as much as we can, just so we're not impeding any growth. And we don't have any problems with being a good mom. Hey, Kito. But, so, for anybody who hasn't gone through this before, this is Gemma. She's one of my commercial boars. Her mama was one of my first goats. She herself is a fantastic mom. Been a mom many times. She is actually little Miss Minnie. Right back there, that's her mama. So, Minnie was actually one of her first babies. There is Cyrus in the alleyway. We got pulled out because we were being a little bit of a brat. This is actually his herd, so he's probably a little confused at the moment. Now this is Aubrey. She's actually a half-sister to Gemma. She is our other boar mama. And she had these beautiful baby girls. Let's see if I can get past the sun. Yeah, there they are. The little black one and the little red dapple. Those are her girls. So it goes to show you can have kind of skinny mom. Oh, there you are. And granted, she's still putting weight on because she gave like 110%. And make great kids. Now, this is her full sister. They were a set of triplets. We sold one and we kept two. And we use her more often with our Kiko crosses. Aubrey, when she is up to weight, looks a lot more like a boar, where Celine is a little bit more Kiko. Hey, honey. But you can tell she's big enough, you could probably make that cross to boars if we wanted to. Now, these three, the white goat in front, this is Miss Gwen. She is one of our original Kikos. If you ever hear goats screaming in the background, that's her first daughter. And you can tell her mom's a lot quieter. Oops, sorry about that. The white goat with the red head in the back is Dorothy. She's also one of the first goats we bought. And that was her daughter Andromeda, or Andy. So, Andy is not her first daughter. Her first daughter is another black goat that has currently got babies this year. So, fun fact about Dorothy is because her first kid had myotonia, or can faint, essentially. We think she's probably not actually as much Kiko as we thought she was. We think that there is some Tennessee fainting goat in there, which makes me think she might have actually been more of a Tex or Gene Master. So, now, even neater fact. You gonna make it? Miss Dixie is the daughter of a full fainter and what is more than likely a Kiko buck, which is 100% not something you want to replicate. But thankfully her mom was a fantastic mom and had an itty-bitty baby. So there are two phrases out there from the Texas area. Tex Master is crossing of a Tennessee fainting goat and a boar goat. And Gene Master is the crossing of a fainting goat and a Kiko. So technically should be referred to as a Gene Master for sure. So, alright, you can see this pen. It's a little bit bare. I mean, it is March 1st. There usually is a little bit more grass than this, but when you have a bunch of goats in a pen, it's gonna get kind of worn down. Hey honey, how you doing? Oh, the judgment. So, as we kind of walk through, just like with the other pen, you will see the occasional dog toy. I'm not big into depriving puppies from having something to chew on. So you will see a lot of either older or newer ropes and balls and whatnot. It kind of helps distract from them chewing on the stock, because honestly, you just can't stop a puppy from chewing. And why do I call my dogs puppies? Because they were puppies to me just not very long ago, and all the frustration that lives in there. So this is the rest of the upper yard here for the Kikos. This is our run-in. We have many more Kikos than boars, so they ended up getting this little bit larger run-in. We have these lovely little small animal hay feeders, and there's positives and negatives. Positive, they hold about half a bale, little square bale of hay. They work pretty well for keeping it off the ground, although you can tell goats are very wasteful. And they kind of encourage the goats to not eat off the ground, which hopefully will help with worm prevention. Negatives, and good reason why we lean them up against the wall this way. We initially intended to put them perpendicular to the wall, so we could kind of help make little bays for the goats and use both sides. The problem is this feeder, I think it weighs about 70 to 80 pounds without hay in it. And my girls weigh a minimum of 100 pounds, if not up to 150 or more. You get a goat standing on that edge in a certain way or pushing on it, and they will knock that sucker clear over if they're in the mood. It works pretty well, leaning them up against the building. We have debated putting in T-posts or even securing them via a chain or some kind of metal bracket to the building itself to be really sure. The other negative is that, as lovely as these are, goat's butt. You can kind of see a little bit here. It's a little bit bent in. And I have a buck who loves to rub his face on it to the point his nose bridge is bald. And Gwen, Kiko in here, let's see if I can find her. She's like, "You're coming for me." You can kind of see that she also has a little bit of a red nose bridge. Now, there's nothing wrong with her nose. She thankfully isn't losing hair like my buck, Atlas. But 100% she has stained her nose hair because she rubs on that feeder so hard. Hi! Don't climb on me. So, you know, you think that's a huge building and you could pack in a whole bunch of goats. Well, goats are opinionated. And for all that, that's why we ended up getting those porta huts. So, we had some lovely old trees here once. Unfortunately, they were rotten out. Probably older than my grandma. But they're nice, and they make good toys for the goats to play with. You can see the main trunk. That's only about under half of the length that tree was when it came down. And Tennessee wood does not last long. It starts rotting pretty fast. But it's a fun toy for now. So we do have a habit of throwing a lot of branches we've clipped around the yard, as long as they're safe for the goats, into both pens. This was actually a rather heaping pile at one point, and they've stripped most of the bark off and all the little pieces. So now, this isn't the best. We are still working on fencing and dividing our pastures up, and we'll get gates in this next year. But this is a pasture that they have access to 24/7. It's not got a lot of grass at the moment. Sorry about that. But it's fairly nice. And you can tell much, much bigger than the other video with the boars. Again, I got way more Kikos than I got boars. And to be honest, boars are a lot easier on each other than the Kikos. So, this pasture actually goes all the way back behind my barn. You can actually see my dog out there. And again, it's fairly big. So if you can see that white blob down there, that's the end of this pasture. So yeah, big enough for these girls. Except if you can tell, they've pretty much kept it nicely chewed down. So now, sorry if that's too fast. This other area, this is another pasture over here. We give them access to this pasture usually later in the spring when the grass is coming up. I've overseeded a lot of warm season grasses over here. It's also kind of a good dumping ground for dirt and gravel and whatnot for projects. But it's not anything to sneeze at, but it's not super large either. We're actually going to be working on, once we finish with the boar goat pasture, getting that area just past the barn fenced. Now that's a whole nother large section of land. So between these 3 sections, we'll be able to kind of open them up as they're done chewing on one to give it a break. Now, I will say, you can see all those beautiful, lovely daffodils everywhere. They're wild, and they spread every year. We don't have babies in this pasture. I have seen little kids come up and take a bite and then spit it out. Daffodils are toxic when ingested in large amounts to goats. I get the feeling they don't taste good because even the adults that have taken a bite of them have pretty much given it a couple chews and then spit it right out. So, kind of like they say, deer don't eat things. Usually those same things are things that goats don't eat. Although there are always the enterprising ones who will go ahead and challenge that assumption of intelligence. So, there we are. So this is the Kiko side. On my property, I do have those 2 kinds of goats that we breed, Kikos and boars. Why did I go with 2 different kinds? Because when I got my first 4 goats, Noelle looked pretty darn boar. She would have had a little Kiko mixed in. But I had 2 pure Kikos, and then I had Dorothy, who's something. It's like all that noise. But, so, I was very fond. The boars are sweethearts. They're easygoing. Whoop! It's not level. Yeah, you have dogs, you have holes. Dogs dig holes. Always fun. Gemma was one of my first boar babies, and she's sweet as can be. Although it is funny, if you put her in with the full bloods, she'll pick a fight in a heartbeat and push them all over the place, which is why she's on this side. But the Kikos are sweet to me. They're not always sweet to each other. They can be really rough on each other. But they're all good girls. I became fond of both. This is a hobby farm, so I just decided to go with both. My end goal with this farm is not to sit here and retire on what I'm breeding and able to sell. If the world worked that way, that'd be fantastic. I'd love to do this full time. But you don't make that kind of money. Honestly, I'd just be happy to be able to pay the hay bill every year and some of the grain bill and not have to have too much out of pocket. But as you see, they're good girls. Why do I have the fainters? I don't think I had shown Lydia in the other photo, but the boar goats have a fainter also. This was the baby of a fainter that unfortunately we had to sell. She constantly picked fights with my dog, and the dog was worth more than the goat. She's a pretty good goat. She's kind of bottom of the totem pole. Easy keeper. If I had to, I probably could sell her, but I don't have a motivating reason to yet. I'm not hard up in that way. I have very few goats that I don't breed. Dorothy's first girl, we bred her this year. She had babies. I won't sell her, but I won't breed her again. She's not the best at kidding. I don't really know. The kids weren't very big, or they weren't too big, but it seemed like she wasn't finishing the contraction. Like she kind of got a good one going, and then it might have been the myotonia she has, but she kind of froze up or didn't finish pushing. So we had to assist a little there. And in all honesty, we kid out in an area I kind of refer to as a smaller pens or the courtyard area between the 2 barns. It keeps them a little bit more secure. You don't have to worry about predators. Put the mamas and babies in stalls at night so we're not worried about weather. Able to feed the mamas separately so we can kind of tailor the diets as needed so you don't end up having mamas fighting over feed and wasting it. you know. The skinny one actually gets more feed, the fat one doesn't. Nyx isn't good in a small pen with her kids. She is rough on the other babies. She doesn't like when her boys mix with them. You've probably seen that in other videos. It's not cute, unfortunately. I hate to say it like that, but it really isn't. It's a little bit dangerous. I'm already trying to figure out how I can keep it under control so we don't end up having a baby that gets hurt. If she was breeding out in a pasture scenario, she wouldn't be one I would keep. She wouldn't be one I would ever recommend for a pasture breeding scenario. Or kitten scenario, I should say. She's a good goat. She's an easy keeper. I think her boys look fantastic. They're nice, muscular little kids. They have good personalities. She herself isn't a hard goat to work with, but she's become very defensive since she's had babies, and while that's not unexpected, I also like to be able to have goats that aren't going to try to lamb-blast babies that aren't theirs. They've got to share the space and do so in a safe way. Celine, for example, had a little boy last spring. Did fantastic. The goat screaming in the backyard is Astrid. This is her first round. She's doing good too. She's very rarely taken any pot shots at kids, and usually it's when they try to nurse off of her and they're not hers. Those two mamas over there, they've done just fine with kids. Never had taken a pot shot. They don't really mind. They just gently nudge them away. No issues there. Can't speak to any of the boar goats. Cara had them all by herself. We'll see how she does. But Aubrey just had some babies and shared the pen with Gemma and another larger goat, Eleanor, the whole time. Neither of them were mamas. Neither of them took pot shots at the kids. At one point we even rotated Dorothy in because she was a little skinny. And she also was super gentle and actually was a good babysitter for those babies for a while. So I just expect my goats to be fairly well behaved. Now, that's probably more info than some people want to know, but anybody who watches these videos wondering about those weird things that make them kind of worry, they have goats at home. I guess that's kind of why I'm sharing these videos a little bit, besides just keeping my extended family aware of what's going on at my property. But it's not always sunshine and rainbows. We try to keep a good handle on it, though. Now, one last thing. Since we're in here, I got a grumpy little fainter here, who, by the way, doesn't faint, you notice? So you see how we have one beautiful, gorgeous blue eye. Can't really get a good look at the other one. And it's hard to get a good look at the other one. That is because at some point we damaged that eye. I don't know what happened. We did a lot of eye drops. We did a lot of antibiotics. We pulled her out. She got really fat for a while because she was out and getting a good feed. And we didn't have any issues. The eye never went septic. We still have it. There's still a little bit of reaction behind it, but it is very cloudy, very red. It's possible she'll still absorb the blood in it. The blood looks pretty dried now. But yeah, stuff can happen. Still to this day, I have no idea what she did. It could be she just got whacked on the side of her face, but it could be she got some dirt in there. It's hard to know. There we are. Hopefully you all enjoyed this quick little tour. We have very noisy goats. So this is our courtyard situation. And there's our noisy child. That larger goat down there next to the door is one of our older ladies. She was practically a bottle baby. Actually, both her and Astrid, the noisy one, right here, both full Kikos, both almost bottle babies. We kind of assisted a tiny bit when they're babies. And there's Nyx, who's thankfully not near the other babies right now. So we do let her out, but we keep an eye on her. She's a fantastic mom to her boys, don't get me wrong. But she's just not trustworthy with other babies. So, alrighty.